Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. We're back for part two of the discussion of the offense against the Browns. Obviously not the result we wanted, but here to talk about with it and hopefully make us feel a little better is Pete Gilbert of WBAL. Pete, how you doing?
Try to be that calming voice of reason. That's what happens when you get old and gray anyway. I'm doing great. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, having fun with that as well. And age comes to us at all times. And we finished an hour in the first half, and neither one of us needed to go to the bathroom, which is a Pyrrhic victory at the very least. So let's talk some offensive line.
So let's go ahead. I guess you want to start. Let's go left to right. We'll start out on a tackle and look at Ronnie Stanley at first. You obviously, Ken, the way that he has come back from the really significant injury, he's never quite looked like the guy that he was before, but he's been good. And then he gets hurt again. What did you think of Ronnie prior to the injury?
Yeah, he was having a somewhat difficult game, but it's under very difficult circumstances against that Browns pass rush. He had a third of a sack shared with Linderbaum and Mitchell. And that was unfortunate. We talked about that in the first half. So we're not. Mitchell crossing the cone was the big issue. Linderbaum obviously getting pushed back into the pocket on that play was difficult. The Browns targeted him to basically make that happen. He shared a quarterback hit with McCary on the other side. Had two false starts. Both of those kind of as a function of cheating and pass blocking. So those are cases where obviously he's dealing with the a good pass rush and trying to get off early. He timed up the cadence pretty well, but these were two occasions when he didn't do it. 4 missed blocks, but only one of those was a loss at the line of scrimmage. So I divide out those blocks for people new to the show. If you go into level 2 and can't find a block, if you're behind on the backside of a run play and can't find a block, if you pull and you can't find a block, that's usually a less serious miss than just having the man opposite you beat you, which those are much more serious in terms of what you do as an offensive lineman. He only had one of those. 1 block in level 2, 3 pancakes, 1 to 2 on pulls, no highlights. He had 5 highlights last week with one of the really great games of the year in terms of highlights anyway. Gets into the bottom end of the C range. But at this point, I think all Ravens fans really want to care about is when he's going to be available to play.
Yeah, and at that point, we're still unsure of the. At least it sounds like. I mean, they didn't come out and say, "Hey, there was no structural, like ligament." They're like, "Oh, got to go have that fixed." So now it's a matter probably of just dealing with swelling, dealing with pain, and just how mobile is he going to be. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Again, probably not going to be there for Thursday, but maybe back for the Sunday night game against the Chargers. At left guard, John Simpson. I still am just amazed this guy is let go. He said openly, point blank, I had no confidence in myself to be any good anymore. And he has been just an absolute find for the Ravens on this offensive line.
Yeah, been good. And 5 straight games now without a penalty. And that was, of course, the big demon that got him in Las Vegas. He had 50, I always know the number, 17 penalties in 1,545 career offensive line snaps coming into this. And he had some problems early on this year, but now 5 straight games without a flag is big. Didn't have any negative events in this game, which is really hard to do for an entire game of offensive line play against the Cleveland Browns, who are going to try and target you. And if they think you're the weak line, they're going to go after you. Weak link. They're going to go after you with stunts. They're going to go after you with blitzes. They didn't get him in this game. 3 missed blocks, 2 losses at the line of scrimmage. He was on the ground twice again. He's still vulnerable to that push-pull move from a defensive tackle. One of those is actually slipping going into level 2, which he might have been helped to the ground by a lineman on that one as well. Not illegally, just helped to the ground. And had 3 highlights. And these are we've noted. He had 4 highlights in the game. He had 3 consecutive. The first was a combo. And that's the typical thing you get from a guard. Block at level 1 to pin a player for another. Then he moved up to level 2 and made a nice block as well. So that happens a lot. Second play, he jumped a gap to block Walker, who was coming left of Stanley. That is an exceptional thing for a lineman to do. Whenever it happens and we see it, it's automatically a highlight block if they're successful on the play. But he actually stepping out to the left of your tackle, one of the best things you can do. It's much more valuable than a help block. It's better than trying any kind of a pass-off routine, which has a much lower chance to work because you kind of effectively make just more moving parts to it. It's very difficult to happen. And that was exceptional. Really good play. And then the next play, he has a block he's going to want to show his grandchildren. On the 32-yard screen to Mitchell, first of all, he was right out front of it. He timed up his departure from the line of scrimmage perfectly with the pass. So he's sitting there. He's literally got his toes on the blue line, as you can see it, not illegally downfield. And then he steps down, turned to the inside, reintroduced himself. I think it was to Walker again, flattened him on the field. And then
I'm just going to jump in. What was so great about the block there is that he was patient enough to not let it be a blindside block penalty, where, if he was more aggressive, that would have been the case. He got in front of Walker, squared up, and then put him on his back, and then went down the field to look for more, which was beautiful.
All he has to do is not move, by the way, on that play. By moving towards the play is where he gets himself in trouble. But he stood his ground, did that. And then that he didn't stand over the body, which is sometimes offensive linemen will stand over the kill. And that's what Cedric Tillman did with Van Noy, was he kind of was looking forward to teabagging him on that situation there pretty much. But Simpson headed downfield, and he almost got there. He just wasn't quite quick enough to get there to the final block that would have sprung Mitchell for the touchdown. The defensive back got around him and made the tackle. And it was unfortunate, but great effort there by Simpson. And one of the it's a block you want to show your grandchildren. It's that special. By the way, if you're an offensive lineman and you're not making an effort to record some of these, you're missing out, because you're going to really regret it later in life that there's not some record of you playing football earlier that you can show people. And you think these videos from the games will exist. They probably won't. They probably won't be as accessible as they are now, and we'll be using a different format for everything that'll make old formats obsolete. And you're going to want to have this in some recorded format. So I just, not going to tell you how to live your life, but I know all these guys are in their 20s right now, primarily, but boy, make that video now and then you'll have it, and be happy you did it. Anyway, 3 out of 3 on polls for Simpson, 4 level 2 blocks, 4 pancakes, 4 highlights. Fantastic game all the way around, an A. And I'm looking at this again. I'm wondering if it really shouldn't have been an A+ game. He was a 0.94 at the base, and I gave him a 0.04 adjustment. It's actually, I might have shorthanded him there with all the highlights he had, but great game.
It was exceptional and fun, again, particularly when you factor in the opponent. That's where I give it an A+. It was just against who he did.
Yep.
All of that damage was so impressive. Then conversely, to his right, when Tyler Linderbaum was drafted, the concern was his size and how would he hold up in the physicality of the AFC North. And those questions, after he's been very good, and I think they made a great pick, and he's going to be the guy, but he showed his weaknesses were shown in this game.
Yeah, you hit it right on the money there. The Browns were the first team to really take advantage of Linderbaum's size effectively in this game. They really targeted him, and in particular on the play that was a combined Mitchell Stanley Linderbaum sack. And I'm forgetting which player it was, crossed the face of the guard, and actually Simpson did a great job handing him off. And then Linderbaum took a big shock back, which it shouldn't have been. I mean, Linderbaum should be able to withstand that block, but then he also got hit from the other side as they were going into both A gaps, and then he got completely overwhelmed. And that the second part was kind of understandable. The first part was he shouldn't have been off his pins from that initial contact. At least that's the way I saw it. Had a big offensive holding penalty that nullified the touchdown by Hill. Real nice run by Hill, and Linderbaum was not close enough that it would have impacted the play. It's 7 missed blocks, which is a lot for a center, particularly in a 50-snap game. 4 of those were losses at the line of scrimmage where he got a little bit out-muscled. 3 level 2 blocks, 4 to 5 on pulls, 2 pancakes. No highlight in this game, although he's had a fair number of highlights this year. He's really now, I would say it's a very close race with Zeitler in terms of who's been the best Ravens offensive lineman. I would have never predicted this because he was way outplaying Zeitler early in the year, but Zeitler's now kind of caught him from behind in the last couple of games. When Linderbaum had a penalty for penalty game against Arizona, I think it was, and then gave up 2.5 pressures in the last game. This game not as great as well, and Zeitler's on a great roll now. It's F for Linderbaum, unfortunately, in this game. We hope he'll be back. He's very important to the Ravens. Hopefully this is just an aberration and not a sign of things to come.
I think Joe D will be a good, calming, effective voice with him as well. And I know they've already bonded really well, and I think that will, if anyone's going to help get him right, that's who will do it. But then to his right, as you point out, Zeitler really was, he looks like he was he was made for the AFC North.
Yeah, he having a lot of trouble anchoring earlier this year. He's had off and on. He's had problems with that. Did have a pressure game one of the last 6, but it's 5 games out of 6. He's been terrific. A third of a sack for failing to pick up a stunt. He was actually looking over to make a help block, and Myles Garrett, I believe it was, came around and he wasn't in position to pick that up. Had one missed block. That was on a pull, so he didn't have any losses at the line of scrimmage to the man opposite him. That's a big deal. 0 of 1 on pulls, 3 blocks in level 2, 1 pancake, 1 highlight combination block. An A, it would have been an A with or without adjustment. Not really close to an A+, but one of his really fine games this year.
And then at Pat McCary, no Morgan Moses, although it sounds like Moses will be ready to go this Thursday, which is hugely critical for the Ravens. And McCary's been very good as a guy you can play any position on the offensive line. And that's why they, gave him a contract to, for a backup lineman that you almost never see. But in this game where you looking just physically, he's just, talk about undersized. The difference in the tackles of Moses and just height, overall body, everything. And Cleveland really took advantage of it.
Yeah, really big length issues, and that does not play well against Zadarius Smith, against Garrett, obviously, against Okoronkwo. They're all large men. He had an A+ last week, the first of any Ravens lineman the entire season. This week he dropped to a .39 raw score, which is quite bad. It's obviously in the F range, or maybe not obviously, but it is, and it's exactly the same he got in the first game against Cleveland. So he was forced into play tackle in that game as well. So very tough assignment for him. 4.5 pressures allowed. That included the pressure on the critical pick 6, where he got backed up, then put on his knees, and that allowed Okoronkwo to tip the ball that fell in the hands of, it was Newsome, right, who intercepted the ball for the touchdown. Gave up a half a quarterback hit. That was Scared with Stanley. 1.33 sacks. So 1 1/3 sacks he was involved in. 4 missed blocks, 3 losses at the line of scrimmage. 1 block in level 2 only, 0 pancakes, 1 out of 1 on pulls, 3 highlights. They had 2 combination blocks. This was interesting, though. He also had a really weird spin block. Now, for those of you who've seen the Super Bowl 5 highlight video, Glenn Ressler in that game for the Baltimore Colts made an incredible spin block on Unitas's touchdown pass to Mackey. That was on the tipped ball for Renfro. So that play had it all, by the way. But Glenn Ressler's spin block there is one thing they highlight. Did do a terrific job in the NFL Films version of that. And McCary had that on a play in this game to block a stunt from Okoronkwo that was really exceptional. Unfortunately, F for the game.
Unfortunately, that's where they ended up. And they're going to, the good news for Cincinnati is not as physical. Up front, Trey Hendrickson is dealing with injury. Sean and Hubbard is dealing with some injury. Not sure, how, if they're going to go.
Aaron Rodgers' season is officially over, but yours has just begun at MyBookie. NFL, college ball, and a brand new cash-out system gives you options to bet and win all season long. First 2 legs of your parlay hit, cash out early and place another bet, or let it ride for a chance at an even bigger payday. Join us at MyBookie for an entire season filled with daily odd boost, same-game parlays, and huge prize pool contests. Right now, MyBookie has a no-strings-attached cash bonus that lets you deposit and withdraw quick. Use the promo code RAVENS on your first deposit of $50 or more, and you can receive up to $200 in cash instantly credited to your MyBookie account. That's promo code RAVENS to claim your cash bonus now. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie.
Oh, how effective they'll be. So that's it. It bodes better for this Thursday in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it should be an advantage if they don't. Fa'alele looked not physical in relief of Stanley, made 6 of his 10 blocks. That's just not particularly good, obviously. Cleveland 2 out of 2. I don't know where he falls in terms of maybe he gets a start at right tackle if for some reason Moses couldn't go or got re-injured or whatever it might be. But I would have to think they're getting close to a point where Cleveland and Fa'alele are approximately equal in terms of where they would put him in. At right tackle or how quickly they would replace him at right tackle. But McCary's just got to have a better game, and that's part of what's going on. We'll continue on with some discussion of the skill position players in this game. We've lost Pete temporarily, but he's back. There you go. And
weird.
Yeah, it happens occasionally. Don't sweat it here. The skill position players in this game, I thought we'd go down through that. You're the guest. Who would you like to talk about first?
Let's see. Why don't we go on the outside? We talked about Zay a good bit in part one, but I just think that he's becoming the guy who they really thought he could be. And for a first-round wide receiver, what that means, when you just after so many times that has not been the case, you're getting ample evidence that he is. And I'm excited for him for that.
Yeah. Very, very good, and great to see his usage down the field, which I think we hit on in part one. So I'm not gonna belabor the point too much. We did talk a little bit about Mitchell in part one. Part of Mitchell's lack of usage is going to be his pass blocking. They don't really love him out there on third down. They want to have him on plays where they don't know whether it's a run or pass. So you can do things like use a draw play. So you can use a screen pass. And they want to also have him in situations where they're not necessarily going to ask him to pass block at all, especially when they need help for their tackles to pass block. So it's a difficult kind of a situation. And I want to see him for more plays just like everybody else, but I realize some of the constraints on his play.
Yeah, and it's you need to be reasonable and think about, again, why. It's not like the Ravens coaches see Keaton Mitchell and, yeah, he sure as hell is fast and he sure as hell can get to the end zone. But you know what? I just want to go with another guy right now. That's not what they're thinking. There are reasons, there's logic behind it. And I think you just kind of laid out exactly why you wouldn't just have him out there as much as I think a lot of fans right now say he should be. But by that same token, he is special. He is a playmaker, and you have to design ways to make sure he has an opportunity to prove that, several times in a game.
All right. Who's your next guy?
How about you? Nelson Aguilar. And I say it, I'm like, every once in a while I watch him run a route or make a play, and often in practice too, going and you catch a ball. You see this really athletic dynamo, and then you're watching the game, and he just sometimes would just disappear forever. He was also critical on the play, the 7-yard loss for Mitchell on the run.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's out there to be blocking, and which is not, I guess, going to be something they should really, have be a key to a play being successful. He got out. It's not his thing there. I feel like there's potential for him still to be a playmaker, but there are and we're just a product of, there are a number of guys, not everyone's going to get a ton of opportunities, but he's a guy that didn't get many and has, early on, he was more of a focal point. He's become less so as the season has gone along. I find that interesting.
Yeah, Andrews has returned and obviously taken some targets from him based on that. He had only missed 1 week, and it's just. I think basically it just is what it is at this point. He's only caught one of the last 4 balls he's been thrown, but he's still got almost 9 yards per target for the year. And for any receiver, that's good. For a Ravens receiver, it's tremendous because they just don't get him down the field that much. When Lamar is extending plays, Aguilar has a good sense of where he needs to be. We saw that on the touchdown pass, that 9-second touchdown pass. So that's how you earn trust points if you're Nelson Aguilar, in addition to just holding on to the football when it's delivered on target downfield. I think he's basically delivered on that. He had some good blocking plays, by the way. Obviously didn't get the job done on the Mitchell -7, but he had some good blocking plays. He's not a guy you really want blocking at the line of scrimmage, but they've even used him to chip a couple times this year. He's more valuable when he gets into level 2 and uses his length exceptionally well on a defensive back, and he can maintain that positional blocking there. And I think at least there he's added some things. But I'll tell you what, Nelson Aguilar, not at all the receiver I expected, much better. He had been terrible last year, and great to see him make a comeback at least.
That's what I thought too. He is better than I thought he was going to be, and certainly early on that was the case. Mark Andrews, did not get, only 4 targets, 2 catches. Mm-hmm. The big 39-yarder, the defender slipped, but it was a good route also. Mm-hmm. That he ran kind of caused the slip. And for a guy that has owned the Cleveland Browns the way that he has throughout his career, 9 touchdowns, more than anybody else, he's just feasted on them. They I'm not sure exactly why do you think he was unable to feast as he had for so often against Cleveland?
Yeah, well, I think they wanted to get him the ball more. I'm not sure that. I mean, look, he caught 2 balls. He had plenty of yards in this game. That's not really the issue. I wouldn't say. The issue is total opportunities, and you'd like to spread that over more total targets. What was interesting about this is we talked about the newness on some players with Mitchell and with Flowers and whatnot, and you're throwing a new wrinkle at a division opponent who knows you very well. I still don't ever feel like the Browns have figured out how to defend Mark Andrews. And the Ravens, most of the wrinkles I think they need to add are with other players, because I think Andrews is going to be Andrews. I think it's how you peel off defenders from Andrews and allow him to have more space to work with between level 2 and 3 that's going to really make him special.
It was interesting, too. There was an off-schedule play where he and Lamar, and it was in the red zone, where he and Lamar were not on the same page. I believe it was I remember saying to Keith, I'm like, I can't recall that, seeing that very often. And that was he had kind of ducked under and Lamar threw like he was going to be deeper. And it was just kind of they're so often, simpatico in that regard. But on that play, they wasn't. And to me, that was also a sign like, some days isn't your day. If those two aren't exactly on the same page, you're going to have some issues. OBJ, again, we talked about him earlier. I thought that, in the slant game is where he is at his best, and we saw why that is for sure there.
Yep, he's definitely. We want to see more of that. We want to see more of figuring out how you can hit OBJ on the move and let him get some yak. He's still a pretty physical receiver. He's not an easy guy to bring down. A lot of his game has been drawing penalties this year, though, and honestly, I can't minimize that. He hasn't had the kind of yardage year any of us would have liked, or that have been predicted by a lot of Baltimore fans, frankly. But he has drawn a lot of penalties. He's been much more of a stealthy anti-hero in that way, in terms of really getting the other team upset, and that's been kind of nice. One guy I want to talk about, or one trio I'll talk about, is likely Kolar and Duvernay, who have been in and out of the offense. And last week against Seattle, I think it was last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, likely had 4 catches. And it seemed like he might be returning to the offense in a more meaningful way. Now, I think Likely had 4 snaps, and Kolar had 7, and Duvernay had 4 also, I think. I mean, it's a 50-snap game, so there's less snaps to go around in total. But they had blocking needs in this game that I would have thought Likely or Kolar would have gotten more snaps. So if you want to have a combo guy who's both somebody who can help you as an eligible receiver to make a chip block and then also go out to make a catch, Likely and Kolar are both good candidates. They didn't have them on the field very much in this game when the tackles needed help.
I feel like Kolar is someone they turn to more when it just comes to blocking. He's not been involved in the pass game really at all. And Likely had the 1 catch. It was a really nice tackle because he had caught it going forward and got 5 yards, and then was immediately just drugged back hard. I was very, there was a big question for a lot of people, how is Todd Monken going to use Pat Ricard? Is he going to have a role? Well, he clearly has a role, and it's significant. But the tight ends is, it's been Mark, and it's been, pretty much all season it's been Mark. Yeah. And that's, I thought that's a little surprising. I thought you might find more ways to get, particularly Likely, who I think has shown more, to be pretty dynamic. It can be, after catching a ball, and ability to make guys miss and get some yak yards. But you're seeing just so much 11 personnel and that one's going to be 89.
That's really it. And I'm a little bit surprised at that, because Monken came from Georgia, used 2 tight ends, and obviously had 2 great tight ends, but he used 12 personnel extensively, and he hasn't really found a way to do it this year. And I don't think there's a problem with Beckham playing a few less snaps and Likely picking up snaps. They already do a pretty good job of doling out wide receiver snaps very effectively. I mean, Marquise Brown, when he first started with the Ravens, was a guy who played a little bit. He wasn't playing absolutely full time, and it wasn't because they couldn't use him out there. It was because they wanted to keep him rested. I think Flowers benefits from that sort of rotation as well, and playing 2/3 of the snaps seems to be a good number, maybe 75%. But an older player like Beckham is certainly going to benefit from rest. I would think, even if he's running some shorter routes. So I think there's an opportunity to play some 12 snaps in there. I just don't think that it's completely in Monken's playbook the same way it was with Roman.
No, definitely not. And maybe, once you get to OTAs, that may be something they, look at in the offseason, try and find a way to better use likely skills. Is, when you get guys that are fourth round rookie who show the ability to make some plays, you want to take advantage of that. It's certainly good for the cap. And Duvernay, you mentioned, he's just really not part of the offense in any meaningful way. He's only going to get the ball, it seems, on a jet sweep or maybe a screen. And he hasn't shown the ability to make guys miss out on that screen, where oftentimes you got to make one, get one guy to turn into something more than 2 or 3 yards. And so, and he's also been okay as a returner, not dynamic that we've seen in the past. So I don't feel like I got a whole lot to say about Devin Duvernay at this point. I don't see any way he's going to have a role really going forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they probably move on after this year, given the cost of him. Pete, it's always a blast to talk football with you, to get together and spend an hour and a half or two doing this. Really appreciate you coming on. Tell folks where they can talk football with you online.
Absolutely, and it's fun, Ken, because there just aren't that many people to talk to who can understand the game the way you do, and I always learn from it. So I appreciate that. And you can find me on X, Twitter, at WBAL Pete is where I am most active. Social media, WBAL TV, Ravens wrap up late Sunday night. Do that with Keith Mills after the news, after Sunday Night Football. Don't be afraid to DVR at 2. And also in studio Fridays and Saturdays along with the Sunday, and out doing Ravens reports for the news at 5 a couple days a week also. So that's where I am.
All right. Outstanding. Other folks out there, if you'd like to be on a Film Study short, hit me up. DM's always open on Twitter. I want to hear from you. I promise I'll get back to you very quickly about the prospect of doing an episode. We got some opportunities with some breaks in the schedule here coming up to do just that. Pete, thanks again for coming on.
My pleasure. Great talking to you, Ken.
And we'll
look forward
talk
to
you next
Thursday
time.
too. Thursday's going to be fine. I think the Ravens will bounce back all right with that one.
I hope you're right. And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.